Hi, everyone. I'm Alexander, and welcome to the Positive Awareness Podcast. I am joined by MLA Surrey South, Stephanie Cadieux, and my partner in crime, Kara. Welcome, Stephanie.
Thank you very much, Alex. Nice to be here.
Nice to have you. First question, what in your life has changed with COVID-19?
Well, I used to be out and about in the community every day, and a very, very busy schedule. Lots of public meetings, lots of events, and since March, I've been at home. So, like most people, I've been, largely doing all my work and meetings by Zoom. I haven't seen family or friends except over Zoom, and all of my work is now done this way. Even next week, starting in the legislature, it will be done through Zoom because I have a compromised immune system, and so I have to take extra precautions. And so I've been home. I haven't been shopping. I haven't been anywhere. So it's been a long go, and it's certainly an adjustment.
Wow, yeah. So who's getting your groceries and who's, all that stuff and your toilet paper?
Exactly. Well, I have a husband, and
Oh, good.
he is our designated shopper.
Great.
So he too hasn't been doing any of the things he would normally do. He's at home with me most of the time, and occasionally, once a week, goes out to the grocery store and the drugstore for the things that are absolutely essential.
Wow, so you guys are really living at stage one still.
Yeah, we are.
So I Googled you and I learned that you used a robotic walker.
I did.
How was that for you?
I've used a wheelchair since I was 18 years old. And so this is many, many years later. Last year in March, I tried this robotic walking machine that they have at City Center here in Surrey, and it was amazing. It was a very weird experience, though, to see the world from a standing position. Although I stand to do transfers, it's never for very long, right? And I'm always focused on what I'm doing, so I don't view the world from standing up. I view the world sitting down, and so it was very different to be standing up again and feeling that motion of walking through my joints, which I haven't felt in 29 years. Was a very surreal experience, very different, but very cool. And it's really neat to see how technology is advancing, in this case, as a therapeutic exercise type of machine, but the same technology is advancing and being considered and look to the future for the ability for people who can't walk to be able to walk. And it's a fascinating evolution.
Yeah, I see on Facebook that there's like these little kids that walk in this in the little walkers and stuff, but I haven't been able to ask them, how they feel about that. So it's really cool that you did it and you can, tell about it as well.
Yeah, it was really a neat experience.
What did you find the same within COVID-19? Like, what is your kind of the similarities and stuff that's like kind of like the same?
Well, I'm still doing my job. So as an MLA, my responsibilities in the community are to be meeting with people, hearing the challenges that they're having, trying to get answers from government when they're struggling to access a program or have questions about government programs or government policy. So that work is still all continuing. It's just now all virtual. It's all through email and Zoom and phone calls. So my cell phones are getting a good workout.
Yeah.
But it's that hasn't changed. Our work in Victoria was put on pause in March, but we are looking now to be going back next week. So the work that we do in the legislature, which is the stuff you sometimes see on TV at the news hour, that is going to start up again next week, albeit differently, because some people will be there in Victoria. Most of us will be on Zoom. So we're going to have to learn how to behave a little differently and maybe a little better, which would be good.
Yes.
Through that through that process. But that means that the work, the daily work in the community is going to go back to how it usually is, which is usually all crammed into Fridays and Saturdays.
Gotcha. How are you perceived in the public? Like, one hand you're in a wheelchair, and on the other hand you're an MLA. I know for myself that having autism, people find out I have autism, they go, oh, well, maybe he can't do this or that or whatever. And then they find out that I can, and it's like, oh. So for you, how is that?
Well, I've been doing this for a long time now, almost 12 years. And so most people in the community now know me as the MLA. So I think that that's probably mostly what they see now. It's certainly mostly how they interact with me. But it wasn't always that way. At the beginning, it was a learning curve for people. I too, as a person with a disability, encounter biases of people and their fears or concern, their expectations that somehow I can't do things because I use a wheelchair or I'm somehow limited in my life. And so I have experienced that through my years in politics as well. People that questioned how well I would be able to do the job. Situations where people weren't prepared for me, so they would invite me to come and speak at an event, but they wouldn't prepare a ramp to the stage.
Gotcha.
So I was excluded at times. And I think it's interesting because there's sometimes an expectation that because I use a wheelchair and have a disability, that's all I care about is issues around disability.
Mm.
Those are issues that I certainly care deeply about.
Of course.
And advocate for changes and have had some success making some changes in my time in government. But that isn't the only thing I'm capable of talking about or thinking about or having opinions on. And so sometimes that I think people believe I have a limited scope, which is certainly not the case.
Of course.
My immediate boss, so to speak, is the leader of the opposition, and he doesn't feel that way, and has made me the critic for finance, which is a pretty big role.
Right.
So that changes that conversation a bit. But I certainly experienced it with members of the public at times, and that is challenging, and it's something that I think every person with a disability has to learn how to overcome with people, how to make people comfortable with them, how to make them understand without offending them either, because that's never our intention.
Of course not.
Right? It can be challenging to help people see the ability and see how we are all contributing.
And how do you help people understand that?
Some of it, I think, is by example, just by doing the things every day that everybody else does and that I need to do, and by being a leader in the pieces in the various portfolios that I've held, where I've led the changes, led the discussions. People realize over time the value that you bring. And so a lot of it is having patience with people, patience for them to learn and understand. It's fair that not everybody has been exposed to people with various disabilities in their life, and that they hold some thoughts and beliefs about people's abilities that come from a place of just not knowing.
Right.
And what they've been told by somebody else or by the media. And I think over time, and certainly over my 12 years in politics, there's been some progress in that regard. I think that we're seeing some changes in how media portrays people with disabilities. It hasn't gone as far as it needs to. We don't have the realistic representations all of the time.
No, you're right about that.
Right? And we all see that. But I think we're making steps. And, last year I met with a man who's short stature. So I don't know
little person, I believe.
Perhaps that's the right term. But he's an actor in Hollywood. He's been on the Seinfeld show
wow.
lots of times. If you've ever watched that show, you might know him as Mickey.
Okay,
Kramer's
okay.
friend. And a very talented actor, and he has done a ton of work around media portrayal of people with disabilities and getting people with disabilities to actually hold the roles in Hollywood. And he's continuing that work. And I met with him last year, and we had some really good conversations about the progress that's being made, both in Hollywood and in the media, but also in society more generally, and certainly some of the advances that we've seen in British Columbia. And you folks are a part of that. You, as SAS members, speaking out and being really active in your community, showing people by doing how you contribute to our community and what you're capable of, and breaking down the barriers that people have in their minds that say that people with disabilities can't live independently, can't have romantic relationships, don't have jobs. All of those things you folks are shining a light on with your own words, and that's really important.
Thank you. And what changes have you seen in BC?
Well, I think over time we've seen a number of changes that have been, partly in society. I think just a greater understanding and inclusion of people with disabilities generally. Less people looking sideways at people with disabilities when they're out at the store. Less people asking you if asking the person, your attendant or your friend that's with you, what you'd like to have off the menu rather than asking you. I think we're seeing changes in people's behavior, which is positive. But in the government, we've also seen positive changes, not enough, but some changes related to how we support people with disabilities in the community to live independently. We're seeing, better housing being built, not enough, but slowly.
Amen.
Right? Like the Unity building in White Rock, and there are improvements, and government and the systems behind government are also learning how to do things differently. When I was Minister of Social Development, I put in place an advisory group on accessibility and inclusion for employment that at the time was led by Carla Qualtrough, who's now the Federal Minister of Employment. And that was in an attempt to really bring the right people to the table, people with lived experience of all the various disabilities, and have a conversation about what needs to change so that people can be actively employed to the best of their ability. And that led to the President's Group, which is now doing a lot of work and putting on a lot of seminars for really leading employers to enhance their understanding of the value of including people in their workplaces. So it's slow progress, but it's coming.
Yeah, it is. It is slow but sturdy. How do you feel about the essential visitors policy?
Well,
you don't have to say it like too politically, of course.
No, of course. Yeah, no. You know what? I think we got to a good place. I think it took way too long. This was something I was raising from the very, very first weeks of the lockdown, that there was a gap here. And certainly with all of the conversations with my contacts in the disability community broadly, they were raising this concern. It was raised both provincially, locally, provincially, federally, and federally they took action much quicker. I think provincially they took far too long to clarify the policy. But I think where we got to with the policy is good. The challenge now is ensuring that when it comes time to use that policy, or for that policy to be enacted because somebody needs to be in hospital, we need to know that it's seamless and that people aren't struggling with that. And so that's going to be an ongoing piece for all of us, to speak out if there are problems and help people understand. Obviously, health has to be the first priority for everybody.
Yes.
That's very important through this. However, it can't trump somebody's rights to have somebody there to help them communicate, or somebody who needs to be there to help them make decisions. So I think we got to a good place with the policy, but it took too long.
I agree. Now I have some fun questions for you.
Great.
This is kind of like off the top of my head, so bear with me. So I've seen a lot on Facebook. There's this guy in a wheelchair. He is a pro skateboarder.
Uh-huh.
Would you ever try that?
No.
Okay.
I did rappel down a building in
That's
Vancouver,
awesome.
20 stories. I did that a number of years ago to raise money for Easter seals. And
Oh,
that was really
awesome.
fun. I really
Awesome.
enjoyed it. But the skateboarding, no, that's way too wild for me.
Me too. I've got a question that's, pretty, I don't know. So do you drive?
I do drive.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, awesome. You have like the handheld?
No, I can use my left leg. So
awesome.
I have a gas pedal on the wrong side of my car. So,
cool.
I'm the only one that can drive my car because otherwise people could get confused and it could be dangerous. But it makes it work well for me, and I've always really appreciated my car and my ability to drive because it's one of the places I've always felt really equal.
I agree.
People can't tell when I'm behind the car that I use a wheelchair. I'm just another driver on the road, and that's always felt very freeing.
I agree with that because I drive as well. I just got my N, and being on the road and just being one of the other drivers is so fantastic, and it's so freeing. And I'm sure you can account for like independence, where it's like you don't have to ask somebody, can you drive me to the store a block away or 3 blocks away? It's you get up and go, and you can drive. I really want to do a cross Canada trip. Just drive.
I remember the day Alex got passed his driving test because he took it in Nanaimo, and I was at the CLBC office doing a welcome workshop, and he showed up and he's like, and I go, it's like our friend Amanda was there with me, and Amanda and I are like, oh, okay, we'll go say hi to Alex. He's like, Kara, I'm back. He's like, come. He took us outside. He's like, look, I parked perfectly.
Yeah, buddy.
I do feel really fortunate to be able to drive. It's something that has given me a lot of pleasure over the years.
Oh yeah.
And actually that kind of made my day because I was a little down because my boyfriend that I lived with had just left for Australia for 3 weeks. So I was kind of feeling a little blue. So it was that kind of also brightened my day up a little bit too, actually.
Yeah, sharing somebody else's excitement.
Yeah, it was funny. I drove to the office. Well, first of all, I had to Google where the office was. And if you know me, I'm not the best Googler. So my Googling skills are not that good. And then I had to do Google Maps. So I was just like, oh no. So then I was like, left turn here, right turn here. And I was just like, oh. And then when I got in there, I was so excited that I just, I honked the horn a bunch of times. And I'm sure the neighbors were all like, what the heck? Who is that fool? And then I was like, Kara, look, I parked the car.
That's awesome.
It was awesome.
It's totally funny.
Yeah, it was my sister's car, so I do got to get my own car, that's for sure. But it was so much fun. It's so freeing, and it's like there's no disability. There's just driving. It was good, and I drove all over Nanaimo, like one side of Nanaimo to the other side of Nanaimo, and then the other side for no reason. I was just like, I'll go see this and I'll go see that, and it was great. All right. Well, thank you so much. I guess that is almost it for us.
Okay.
Thank you so much for being a part of the podcast.
You're very welcome. That was great.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too, Kara.
Nice to meet you as well. Positive Awareness Podcast was brought to you by the Self Advocates Leadership Network and the Self Advocates of Semiahmoo, with our partners, Self Advocates of Nanaimo, BC People First, selfadvocate.net, empowering self-advocates to take action and unity.